Fraser Island in Queensland, Australia. I am the CEO of the Aboriginal Carbon Foundation, and we're going to be presenting today with Hadassah from Fiji First Nations and DJ, David, from Western Yalanji Aboriginal Corporation. Today is the launch of the Climate Integrity Alliance, and I'll just give a little introduction from our patron, Marcia Langton, to start off the presentation.
Hello, I'm Professor Marcia Langton, the patron of the Aboriginal Carbon Foundation. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the area now known as Sydney, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I also want to thank the Insurance Australia Group for hosting this event and for their long-term partnership with the Foundation. We value this positive relationship. Traditional owners welcome genuine and respectful relationships with corporate Australia. This is still a new set of relationships in Australia, but one that has many positive elements that we hope to explore. We believe that true climate integrity cannot be separated from social justice and the recognition of Indigenous rights. They go hand in hand for the benefit of everyone involved. It's when you separate the environment from the people that I believe problems begin to arise. When companies invest in projects with high integrity, they're not just doing the right thing for the planet, they're also making low-risk, future-proof investments that build trust and long-term value. This also supports their investors, shareholders and clients they are doing business with. And just as importantly, we need to ensure that safety, transparency and accountability are embedded in all environmental markets so that no form of greenwashing can take place. Together, we can build a system that delivers real environmental outcomes and lasting social benefits for communities, for business and for country. I would now like to launch the Climate Integrity Alliance. Congratulations all. Thank you.
So Marcia Langton is our patron, Professor Marcia Langton. She's a legend in Australia. We hold her in great reverence. She's one of our senior Indigenous leaders and has been the patron of the Aboriginal Carbon Foundation for a number of years now. I'd just now like to talk about the Climate Integrity Alliance, about what it is and what we're doing. And I believe that it's a timely introduction for the Alliance. We marched on Saturday morning. We marched with 30,000 people. We marched with 30,000 like-minded people who believe that integrity means social justice and Indigenous rights are combined, not separated. The Aboriginal Carbon Foundation is a not-for-profit. We were established in 2010. We believe that high integrity processes exceed government regulation. So there is government regulation, and some people believe that by simply ticking the box on government regulation that you have integrity. Rather, you have compliance with government regulation. You do not have integrity. So we're exceeding that. When we talk about Indigenous rights and social justice and integrity, a lot of people think, oh, it's just about Indigenous people. But really what it is about is having a low-risk investment opportunity for corporations. It means that corporations can invest safely. It means that they know their money is going to the right places. It means that they're buying a commodity that has integrity that they then can promote themselves. So corporations can invest sensibly, they can invest sustainably, and they can use their investment to promote their own company. That's fine, because the ultimate outcome of that investment is First Nations, and it's a safe bet. This is actually a visit of a number of friends and supporters to Western Yalanji country. That photo, this is David's country, where we were doing where they are doing cultural burning, and we came along to see the outcome of that work that they're doing. And David will talk about cultural burning in a moment. When we talk about genuine outcomes with savanna burning, we can demonstrate that we've had a 52% reduction in wildfires across Northern Australia, scientifically validated. This is not just a claim, it's not a hypothesis, it's not a theory, this is scientific data. We've got a set of data suites from NAFI, North Australia Fire Index, that demonstrates that through Indigenous savanna burning, there has been a 52% reduction in wildfires. So that means there's also an increase in biodiversity. When investing in carbon credits, which I know some people find very confusing and it's a very complex area, there have been a lot of question marks around integrity. People want to know that they're investing in the right place. They want to feel confident that their company values are being respected. They want to be able to demonstrate to their staff that their company's values are true. It's not just something that they talk about. This is something that the company believes in. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all time poor. Nobody has time to waste on buying junk carbon credits, which are going to come back and hurt the company. People want to do business, they want to do it in an efficient manner, they want to know that their investment is going to the right places. And that's where First Nations high integrity projects can actually help companies. When we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, when we're looking at all the social metrics, when we're looking at what the companies need to register, it's not only good for First Nations, it makes those companies look good as well. When a company is meeting all of their metrics, it means that the corporation is in good health, and it means that the company is looking really good. So there's a very direct benefit for the corporations who invest in First Nations with a high integrity. It makes them look good. The fundamental belief is climate integrity cannot be separated from social justice and Indigenous rights. And I believe that's where we've gone wrong throughout the entire world. There's been too much of a focus on carbon credits, and they've been separated from social justice and Indigenous rights. And that is what's led to the current problems that we have. It's led to the current questions around integrity that we have. And we believe that they cannot be separated. There are some practical elements to integrity. Some of those practical elements are First Nations should have some form of nationally accredited training so people actually understand what they're doing. So this is training that we did in the Kimberley about 6 weeks ago. Carbon farming has been in the Kimberley for 10 to 15 years. This is the first time anyone's ever been trained. First time anyone's ever actually sat down and explained what a greenhouse gas is, what a SAVBAT report is, what NAFI is, what the carbon markets are. No one had bothered to explain that to First Nations before, despite the fact that carbon farming had been going on for over a decade. Independent verification of environmental, social and cultural core benefits. Site visits, come to meet the people, and that's what that last slide was when people showed them their country. And there should be some form of code of conduct. So when we talk high integrity, it's not just words, there's actual actions in there as well. These are the standards that high integrity can be built around. And we're not specifying exactly what training course or exactly what verification or exactly what sort of code of conduct. We're just saying that these standards must be in place. And these are the standards that we currently meet. So if we're meeting them, then other people can meet them as well. Because we're a small not-for-profit. but we ensure that our projects are high integrity. Through having high integrity, we will not only be trading Australian carbon credits with environmental, social and cultural core benefits, but there are a range of other commodities that can be traded. We're working in collaboration with other organisations that have high integrity, such as Terrain, NRM, with cassowary credits, and also with Greenfleet with carbon removals. Cultural fire is something that's happening down south. It's a program down south at Southern Australia. And biodiversity certificates are a new program that's coming through the Australian government. So there are a range of environmental commodities that people can invest in, and the linking point there is First Nations are actively involved, and that's around high integrity. A couple of key dates around the launch of the Climate Integrity Alliance, and we do have a little, if you want more information, there is a booklet that's available. I think it's on the chair, or see Emma or Mihaela over there, and you will have some more details in there. This is the international launch. So we did a consultation webinar. We did the Australian launch on the 12th of November, the international launch today, and we're having a climate forum in Melbourne next February. And this is on Western Yalanji countries. This is one of David's colleagues. So feedback is welcome in the first 12 months as we're launching the Integrity Alliance. Nothing is set in stone. We welcome feedback. We're working through this. A lot of people are talking about this. We're actually doing it. That's the difference. And so we welcome feedback. We haven't got it all sorted out. This is a slightly complex, set of arrangements here. So we welcome feedback. We welcome people's ideas, and we welcome people to join us. So that's on the left, that's Kimberley, the West Kimberley, one of the projects we work in the West Kimberley. And this is the Fiji First Nations working group that we collaborate with, but Hadassah will speak about the work we're doing in Fiji. And I'm just going to briefly touch on some of the work that we do in Fiji, and actually might get Hadassah just to come up here. Hadassah, would you like to come up? Because we'll be talking about Fiji next, the work that we're doing and the work that First Nations Fiji are undertaking in developing their own domestic carbon farming programs. Fiji has had carbon farming for over a decade, all right? They've had all the international schemes. They're now building their own, managed by First Nations Fiji. This is some of the work. And I'm just going to go to the next slide about developing a methodology in Fiji by Fijians. And so this is LiDAR. So this is getting data. And I'm just going to go back. And I might actually get Hadassah to come up now just to talk about First Nations Fiji and some of the work that you're doing in Fiji. So Hadassah, would you like to speak?
Bulavinaka, everyone. Thank you for coming to this presentation. First Nations Fiji Resources Foundation, we are a non-profitable organization. It's a collaborative work amongst Indigenous professionals that have identified issues back home in terms of systematic poverty. What we do is that we give pro bono advice to resource owners in Fiji who are mainly the Indigenous Fijians. What we do is that we, once they come to us, what we do is we study the dynamics of the communities, and we develop legal framework in terms of what basically suits them, whether it is a company, whether it is a business, whether it is a cooperative. And we ensure that part of our processes is the Convention 169, ILO Convention 169, where we respect the free, prior, and informed consent principles, and we ensure that all the Indigenous communities thoroughly informed of the projects that we do. One of the projects that's really taking off in Fiji is carbon farming. We are in partnership with the Aboriginal Carbon Foundation. We are working with 7 projects at the moment. The first one has been handed over to the Aboriginal Carbon Foundation. One of the things that we identified is that before we hand our clients over for whatever businesses that they want to go into, that we ensure that they are legally protected, meaning that they must know all the fine prints of whatever contracts that they're going into. One of the major issues, I know it happens here too in Brazil with the guys at the Amazon, it's just the failure of developers in explaining to the Indigenous resource owners the core benefits, who benefits out of projects, how much does the government get, how much do the developers get, how much do they get, and these things, they need to be really transparent. We have to be transparent about it. And we are grateful to the guidelines that's been provided by the Aboriginal Carbon Foundation, in which we have built our capacity building with our communities. We've had so many international companies coming into Fiji, trying to scam resource owners, and because of the ignorance, and also because carbon farming is a new subject, there's a lot of mistakes that has happened. So what we've done, when I say that we've identified the issues, we've identified the loopholes, we've even identified the loopholes with our Climate Change Act, the policies that are already in place. So we work together with the Aboriginal Carbon Foundation on how to be able to negate all these loopholes and come up with something that is solid, that is there to protect the Indigenous rights of Fijians that are going into carbon farming. You know, we've even had clients in Fiji who are already legally contracted to other carbon developers that are now wanting a switch over, purely just because of the integrity of the capacity building that was given to them. And as carbon developers, you know, we're just out there for a quick buck. We don't really care how it affects the Indigenous communities. So again, when with this Climate Integrity Alliance coming through, we at First Nations Fiji Resources Foundation, we've wholly and gladly just moved into this space because there's a lot of things that needs to be developed in Fiji, and we are doing it because Aboriginal Carbon Foundation is doing it. So we've just adopted the principles of effective work with the Indigenous communities back in Fiji. I guess that's basically the work that we do. You can check us out on our website. It's First Nation Fiji Resources Foundation, www.firstnationfiji.com.
Hey, Adassa. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions and see how we go. Earlier this year, that we did a series of consultation meetings throughout Fiji. We spoke with over 500 Matangali traditional landowners. What do you think the concerns of the traditional landowners are in Fiji around carbon farming? What did you hear from those meetings?
Okay. Firstly, because of the work that we do, clearly what people were coming out with is how much, in order to protect this, how much are we going to be getting? One of the things with carbon developers, everybody comes in and with a focus on protecting the environment. You know, that's the lingo that we all like, as climate change advocates, we all like to talk about protecting your environment. But when it comes to monetary value of that protection, as carbon developers, there's a lot of carbon developers, and they do not like to talk about what really are the core benefits. And that public consultation that we had, it was jam-packed. Even our government was surprised at the number of people that actually were interested. And in Indigenous communities, it's the word of mouth that is more powerful than advertisements. So we had full packed halls. People really were just concerned whether I'm going to be getting scammed or not. Our government has also gone into agreements with certain international organizations selling short carbon back home. I'm not going to go into those details, but these are the fear of what our Indigenous people back home are concerned about. You know, and also, like, I'll just give an example. You need to tell them whether the carbon credits are going to be retired or not. How much is it going for? What is your cut in it? What's your deal and what's our deal? So those were all the issues that were coming out from the floor because of past experiences within the Indigenous communities that are locked up in certain carbon deal agreements.
One of the key points that we talked about in Fiji was around carbon property rights. So the fundamental belief, or the fundamental principle, it's not a belief, it's a principle, that if you own the land, you own the carbon. How do you think the traditional landowners think about that?
Well, first and foremost, I'll just dive a bit, I might bore you. I'll just dive a bit into the Climate Change Act in Fiji. We're one of the first countries that adopted the Climate Change Act. Now, within the Act, there's two portions of it in terms of ownership of carbon. One is that you need to be the leaseholder. And secondly, if you are the leaseholder, then you're entitled to being the owner or to apply for a title or a lease on property. It's called property sequestration rights. Now, traditionally, as Indigenous people, we just know that's your tree, everything in your tree, everything in it is yours. We really didn't know that carbon was stored in it, but because it is our tree, it is sitting on my land, it is ours. But because of the legislation that does not expressly state that it belongs to you. So basically what it does is that it gives the loophole to whoever that wants to move into Fiji and earn money from Indigenous land, Indigenous forests, Indigenous spaces, that you can just do that. So it's basically taken the right away from Indigenous people to say that is yours. Unless and until you legally own it, as stated in the Act, then it becomes yours, then carbon becomes yours. But now that we have empowered people, these past 2 years really, that you own the land, the carbon is yours. So the narrative now has changed from what it was before to now. So there's a lot of demand that is coming for our services, purely because they now understand that the carbon belongs to them. You know, before it goes into the process of it being quantified into units and all those processes, again, we have been very, very transparent, and also because of the public consultations. And it was all over, it was around Fiji, it was just not on a specific spot. So what normally was never shared to Indigenous communities was basically, we literally opened, is it Pandora's box? But we basically opened up a whole lot of resources for the Indigenous owners.
Excellent. Can we just give Hadassah a round of applause? David, we're going to get you to come up next. We're going to talk about the Australian experience with carbon farming and cultural burning in Cape York. Can you tell us a little bit about the Western Yalanji traditional owners and the work that you're doing in Cape York?
Good morning, everybody. I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country we meet on today and pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Sorry, what was the question again?
Who are the Western Yalanji traditional owners, and what is the cultural work that you're doing in Cape York?
Yes, so I'm a proud Western Yalanji and Cookajungan man from the Cape York of Far North Queensland. Our country is situated in between the boundary of Rifle Creek outside of Mount Malloy and just southwest of Laura in Quincan country. The cultural work around fire we're doing has been highly beneficial, not only to my mob, but the country as a whole. The amount of biodiversity we've seen come back within the country has been astronomical. When I first went out there, one of my first trips, as a ranger, the country looked sick. It looked like it needed healing. That year, we put in one of our first burns, and you could just see straight away the change in the country and the wildlife coming back in. You'd get the odd crow before you put a burn in, and then all the native birds, the native lizards, the kangaroos come back. It's really special to see. This cultural firework provides employment for community and mob, provides a sense of identity to culture, especially being in the Palmer River region. The Western Yalanji traditional owners were displaced in the 1800s, and pretty much all of them haven't been back on country since that time. But through elders who have had the opportunity to live and work out there all their lives, it's through them that we're learning, how to care better for this part of our country, And yeah, it's very fulfilling work, and you can see real benefits coming from it.
Now, Dave, can you tell me, do the Western Yalanji, do they have native title rights to their country? And what is native title? How do you go about doing native title work?
So, with native title, you don't really get much. You get a right to comment. You get a right to build a lean-to, and a right to practice your cultural, your cultural practice. And that's if you get allowed access to that country by the actual landowners. Yeah, we're lucky enough to have built a really, really good relationship with the pastoralist of Palmerville Station, Darren Pearson. And he lets us live and work freely on country, And it's been a really good relationship for the past 6 years, I think it's been.
It's a very good working relationship through native title. Back on a white pastoralist, which is actual Aboriginal rights and interests. But can you just also tell me a little bit about cultural fire? Like, isn't fire a really dangerous thing? Aren't you scared? Like, aren't you really worried? You're lighting these fires. Like, isn't that really dangerous work?
It can be if it's not done right. We're lucky enough to have elders that have shown us the right way fire, how to do it properly and make it safe for everybody. And now, me and our rangers at Western Yalanjis, we're not scared of fire at all. Fire is a part of our life, and it always has been. It's being able to reconnect with that fire and just that cultural identity that it's just another aspect of our life.
It really is amazing when you see the traditional owners doing cultural burning. Fire is almost like a relative. It's like an auntie or an uncle. It's a friend. It's something that people welcome very much. It's a very welcome friend on country. Anyway, we might open up to a few questions now. If there's any questions, otherwise we'll keep on talking. But does anyone have any questions about the work so far?
Hi there, Mark Tilley from Carbon Pulse. Rowan, I'm just wondering what the Integrity Alliance's perspective is on the new proposed savanna burning method for generating Australian carbon credit units is, because there's been a lot of commentary about the potential for credits to be projects to be back credited and receive credits for sequestration that has already occurred. And if it's, this alliance is about sort of instilling integrity and trying to bring back integrity to the market. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that specific method and how that works. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go straight into the methodologies and around integrity of the methodologies. This is an industry-focused question, I might add. So we're up to our fourth variation of the methodology. So savanna burning, it's going to 1, 2, 3, up to 4 now, and it's called SavCam. It's a different technique of measuring. There may be more carbon credits coming through the system as a consequence of the new measuring system, the new carbon accounting. My belief is that the science should lead the way and that the government should not interfere with science. The last time that the government interfered with markets and the issuance of carbon credits, it led to a crash in the carbon voluntary market, and we should allow the science to demonstrate what the carbon issuance should be. So what the methodology demonstrates should be allowed to let run, rather than there being some artificial incursion by the government, if that makes sense. It's what the methodology, whatever the sequestration rates are, that's what they are.
Thank you for. Yeah, thank you, Holy Murphy. Thank you for this presentation. My name is Dane D'Souza from the Métis National Council in what's currently known as Canada. I think when we come to COP, it's, we talk about these very abstract global systems and the economics of these things. And one thing I have a lot of difficulty doing is bringing that back home to my community, to those Indigenous communities that, are far away from the city, let alone far away from Belém. And I really would like to hear what this looks like on the ground, what it looks like for community when you're around that fire, like what that story is for when you're actually out on the land, putting that fire on the land, and how this carbon integrity and all that is the work that had to be done to support that.
Yeah, well, when you're out on country and burning with your family and with your community, there's not a feeling really that can match it or even pass it. The sense of pride and family you get from burning with your brothers and your sisters and your aunties and your uncles and your elders, it's pretty special. And yeah, you get a real sense of your culture and your identity. And yeah, the carbon credits are nice, but this work is for us. It's a chance for us to practice our culture. And yeah, the carbon credits are a nice addition, but this brings real meaningful, a real meaningful contribution to community and people, that really want to be back on their country and living and working on their own country.
Hello, I'm Sonia Smallacombe, obviously from Australia. Just trying to understand what you are saying about carbon credits. For example, one of the things that I've noticed with rangers, that rangers are paid by grants. They're not part of a system of employment that everybody else enjoys in Australia. Rangers are paid differently. And yet they do the most work in terms of looking after country. The work is so vital and so important, yet you are the worst paid and probably the worst conditions. I was just wondering, when you talk about carbon credits, are the credits that come back to, what the credits come back to the community, are they in par with the credits that are sold on?
There's two aspects to that work. I can see here. I see it. We believe that carbon credits are a co-benefit, so it's a secondary outcome, and I'll get to it in a moment. The reason why we go carbon farming is to achieve environmental, social, and cultural outcomes. The secondary outcome, or the co-benefit, is a carbon credit. We trade with Western Yalanji, so I'll be upfront about this. I'll be very transparent. Western Yalanji, they receive $60 per tonne for the carbon credits. We receive $12, so we buy at 60 and we sell at 72. So we get $12, Western Yalanji gets $60. And as far as I'm aware, that is the best price in Australasia. I do not believe that any carbon farming group, particularly over the last 3 years, has received more than $60 per tonne. So, and that's because we value the carbon credit in the voluntary market at a very high rate. And it's because, and the other reason is because of we make companies look good because of all the ESG, sustainable development goals. We make them look good, so we charge them top dollar. But at the end of the day, and I think this is one of the problems we have in Australia, is that many First Nations groups are not valuing their work and not valuing their commodity in the voluntary market at the right price. I'm trying to sort of speak a little bit carefully here. Basically, Western Yalanji have been getting $60 per tonne for the last 3 years, and just about every other traditional owner group in Australia are being ripped off, to put it bluntly. And you never hear that story. You never hear that story. And my question is why? Like, you go and ask them. You go and ask or that other mob. You getting $60 a tonne? The answer will be, there's two answers. First answer is dunno. They wouldn't know what they're getting. And if they do know what they're getting, the second answer is no. So the service that many traditional owners are getting in Australia is B grade. And we refuse to operate in that B grade system. So and that's what's led partly to the Integrity Alliance. But it's just because the work of traditional owners, I think this is what you're getting at as well, the work of traditional owners is being undervalued in Australia. Okay, so next question.
Hi, I'm Carleen Maywald from South Australia. Thank you all to the panellists. Really, really interesting conversation. I just wanted to actually add to what you just said, Rowan, about undervaluing of the traditional owners' contribution to landscape and water management, and it's something that we really must address. And I appreciate greatly just having a flick through your brochure here as to how you're not overselling, you're actually upselling the benefits and doing it in a way that's actually demonstrating the value to those who are buying the carbon credits. But I think one thing that stood out to me in this brochure is the way in which you engage with the people you're selling to beyond just a transaction. It's about an experience. And I just would really like to ask and explore further how companies are seeing the value in enabling their staff and their management to go out on site and experience the burning and the work that you do from an Indigenous, and how that actually helps you upsell the value by that traditional knowledge being transferred and shared with the company. So it's not just about putting a little logo on their promotional material. It's that experience that you're giving them to actually understand the value of what it is that you're doing.
Well, Dave, we brought up some corporate friends to Western Yalanji and went out cultural burning. What was that experience like? You were there?
Yeah, it's amazing to see the switch in people when they see how calming it is, and how it's not frantic at all. It's a way of life for us, and that sort of just shifts their whole mindset into, oh, look at what these fellas are doing. It's actually meaningful. It actually means something to them, and it means something to all of us on this planet, in our country. There's evidence of what we're doing is working, and it means something.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. For the first time, and we've been around for 15 years, for the very first time, we actually invited some of our friends and supporters and corporate buyers to come and meet with Western Yalanji traditional owners and experience what we experience and actually undertake cultural burning. And it was one of the most life-changing experiences that people had ever had. It was just it was a impactful experience for everyone that was there. Can I just, and so there was, I only had one rule when people were visiting on country with the traditional owners, and my one rule is that all the visitors must light one fire. So that was my only rule. I said, look, we're out there, we're going to do it culturally, we're going to do it safely, and we're going to do it properly. But you can't stand and watch. You've got to light a fire. Can I ask the audience here, who has ever lit a fire out bush? Has anyone ever lit a fire? Put your hand up. Yeah. It's a wonderful experience. And I don't think people... Petro came from Fiji as well. We couldn't stop him from lighting fires. He was a pyromaniac. But it was a wonderful experience for the corporate friends and supporters to come and visit the traditional owners, because the traditional owners are as interested in them as they are in the traditional owners. It's a two-way exchange. And we're going to be doing it again next June, July. So we're going to be doing it again. And we also brought over some Canadian friends early in the year. It was too wet to go burning, but we're going to invite them to come back and do some burning as well. So we're going to do that. We got time for a couple of more questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to throw to Hadassah about the Fiji experience. And Hadassah, just tell me, I'm a little bit curious. Why has it taken Fiji so long to develop their own carbon scheme when you've had all these international companies there? And we're going to swap mics, actually. This mic's better than that one. Just give me that one. You've had all these international companies operating in Fiji for over a decade. Carbon farming's nothing new in Fiji. But this is the first time First Nations are doing it for themselves. Why do you think it's taken so long, and what's that journey been like?
Well, not to rubbish anyone, but the fact of the matter is that it's about the intention of the parties involved. So it's taken this long for Indigenous Fijians to be able to come together, develop their own projects, start setting up a tradable platform. That is what we are doing. It should be out within, I think, 6 weeks from the date of the contract that's been signed, so before the end of the year. Basically, it is the intention. It was the government intention under the RED Plus program, one, to own the carbon and to earn money out of carbon. And if we look at the initial documents or the initial literature that was put out by some international organization, the landowners were to only get 5% benefit. What we've done now is that we've set the standard or the platform in terms of ownership, even within the voluntary carbon market space. Traditionally, whether it is with Gold Standard or Vivo, there's a 60-40% in terms of ownership. What we've done now with Aboriginal Carbon Foundation coming in and being very transparent about the whole processes, it is now an 85%, 15% ownership of the project. I believe that what's happening at the moment in Fiji, we've basically changed the status quo on a whole lot of things. We literally pushed the government's hand to say that now that they will provide 80% of benefit sharing within the RED Plus project. So basically that is, Rowan, the kind of impact that we have created within the Indigenous space of carbon. Yeah, that's basically it. There's just other internal policies and legislations that need to be changed, but within the voluntary carbon market space, we have the liberty. Even our Climate Change Act has not commenced as yet. So we have the liberty to be able to do what we are doing at the moment, and also the government is quite supportive in the setting up of the framework of the voluntary carbon markets space. And First Nations Fiji Resources Foundation, Aboriginal Carbon Foundation, is spearheading this at the moment. So the first rounds of consultation on the VCM framework has already taken place. We've got the code of conduct that that's been done, and then the registry and the tradable platform, which should be coming out within 6 weeks. And also, I just thought, is it okay if we can just show the slides again? Because I wanted to talk about integrity. The last slides of what's happening in Nambucumbuque. Right. One of the issues that keep coming up is the scientific evidence of carbon stored in trees. So when we attended the CMI conference in Australia last year, we found out that the LiDAR machines, the drones, the LiDAR machines had the latest technology, which has improved a great deal. And this is basically what has happened. See, this is a locally based project. So we have the resource owners setting up all these white crosses. We had the aeroplanes flying over their land with the LiDAR machines attached to the plane. So what used to take months to be able to do it just took a few days. And also, this is, you can't argue with this kind of, you can't argue with this, So basically the integrity, what ABCF has done for us, they've set the integrity up high. So the landowners they have matched it up with that. So we've had, this is part of the work that we do at the foundation, and we ensure that the integrity, the process of integrity is intact, whether it's integrity with the carbon developers, whether it is integrity with the processes. You can't, what RED Plus has is that they have the satellite imaging. This is way, way better than that. So just thought I'd mention it.
Okay, I think our time's almost up. I'm getting the wind up. Do you want to let people know they can join us in the meeting room at 1 p.m. if they want to discuss further? Please do not read this out. So the meeting room's just around there, 1 o'clock. If you want to come and have a yarn to us, we'll be there. And thank you very much for coming along. So thank you.
Thank you all.